everyone, it's Jennifer from Flux. Welcome back to week 2 of our Comforts of Home wrap that we're making. This is, just to refresh you, a beautiful asymmetric wrap. We're using a yarn cake, so the colors just kind of like play out on their own. This is squishy and very easy, kind of light, easy breezy kind of project. And we are going to be learning how to make the actual wrap part today, the main part of the project. So we're going to be starting at the bottom point here and working our way up, up, up. We're going to be increasing on one side and just working a straight side on the other side. And we're going to go all the way up till the top part here. Now, like I mentioned last week, this is, if you're not familiar with wearing this shape of a wrap, I have some ideas on the Flux blog. You can click the link down below and sort of see all the different ways to style it. It's just a kind of a fun, different way to wear a wrap. And next week, we're going to be doing some of the finish work and adding a fun little tassel with some of the yarn scraps if you'd like to do that. I didn't have quite enough to do that very last row across the top, so I used my scraps to make a little tassel to sort of punctuate the bottom and to bring some of that purple back down. So let's get started on making the wrap next. But before we start, I want to mention one more little thing, that we have a Ravelry group and a Facebook group for our crochet alongs. Hop on over there and get to know some of the other makers that are making these projects. You can share your yarn colors, you can ask questions. There's tons of people in there that are all doing the same thing. If you make this project as well, be sure and use the hashtag FiberFluxCal to share your work, and you can see what everybody's doing as well. So let's get started. Okay, so like I mentioned in the title, this is the updated version. The other version that I released yesterday had not only a technical problem, but there were some errors too. So this is the error-free version. What we're going to do is put a slip knot on our hook. Wrap the yarn around your fingers to make a loop. Bring the yarn behind the loop like that. Reach in with your hook, bring up a loop, and tighten. The next thing we're going to do is chain 7. So let me just zoom in a little bit more so you can see better. To make a chain, wrap the yarn around the hook and bring it through the loop. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. So here is our starting chain, and you want it to be consistent in your tension, but not too loose. But you want to also be able to work into the chains. If you're having trouble, some of you have asked me about tightness of your chain. You can go up a hook size for your chain and then come back down to the J for the rest of your project. For row 1, what we're going to do is work our first V in the 4th chain from the hook. So this loop here does not count. We're going to go 1, 2, 3, and 4. So in that 4th chain from the hook, our V is a double crochet, chain 1, double crochet. So to make a double crochet, wrap the yarn around the hook, insert it into that 4th chain from the hook, bring up a loop. You'll have 3 loops on the hook. Wrap yarn around hook, bring it through the first 2 loops. Wrap yarn around hook, bring it through the last 2 loops. Then what we're going to do is chain 1, and then in that same chain, we're going to work a double crochet again. So double crochet, chain 1, double crochet. And that is our first V. Then what we're going to do is skip down to the last chain here, the chain farthest away from us, and we're going to work another V, okay? So double crochet, chain 1, and a double crochet, all right? Just like that, all right? So you should have 2 V's on your first row. Okay, for row 2, what we're going to do is chain 3. 1, 2, 3, and then turn our work. Then what we're going to do is in the first V of the row, remember that first V that's also in the written pattern, it's called the chain 1 space that we're going to work into. That chain in between those 2 double crochets creates a space. So the chain 1 space, we're going to work a V, okay? So double crochet, chain 1, double crochet, just like that, okay? And then what we're going to do is work a V into the next V. So in each V across, as this gets bigger, you'll have more V's. But then the next V here, work a V into that V. So in that chain 1 space, work your double crochet, chain 1, double crochet, just like that. And then what we're going to do is work a V into our turning chain space. So when we did our chains and turned our work, it creates a little space. Now it might sort of be kind of like a C shape off to the side, but you can sort of pull it apart and see it. We're going to work a V into that turning chain space at the end of the row. So double crochet, chain 1, double crochet, just like that. And now row 2 is complete. Now before we move along, this is totally optional, but it kind of helps me remember where I'm increasing. So what we're going to do is have a flat side where we work our sides straight, and then we're going to have sort of like an angled side where we're increasing. We're increasing on one side and we're just working it kind of regular on the other side, okay? So at this point, optionally, you can place a stitch marker into that last V that you worked, just to remind yourself where you increase, okay? And what I mean by increase is when we work that V into the turning chain space, that creates an increase, okay? So let's move on to row 3. For row 3, what we're going to do is, once again, chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and turn our work. Then what we're going to do is work a V into that first V. So see that first V of our row? Double crochet, chain 1, double crochet, and then we're going to work a V into each V across. So in each one of those chain 1 spaces, you're going to work a V. Double crochet, chain 1, double crochet, and then there's another one. So double crochet, get a little bit more yarn here. So that was a double crochet, chain 1, double crochet, just like that. And now at the end of this row, now see we're on the opposite side of our stitch marker. We're on the other side now. What we're going to do to finish this row is to work a double crochet, just one double crochet into the turning chain space. Okay, just like that. All right, so we're starting to sort of see the beginnings of our straight side here and our angled side, all right? So for the rest of your wrap, you're just going to work rows 2 and 3, 2 and 3 over and over and over again until you either run out of yarn or you get the dimensions that I mentioned in the written pattern, which, as a refresher, are 31 inches across the top edge, 54 inches down the left side, 54 inches down the right side, and our little tassel's about 4 inches tall, just as a refresher. But you can easily create different dimensions for yours by simply working more or less rows. If you want a smaller shawlette, then you can work, or if you're making it for a smaller person, you can work less rows, and it'll be narrower and shorter. If you want it to be much larger, you'll work more rows, and that will increase the width and the length of it. Now just note that you may need to use more yarn if you're making yours bigger. But we're just going to be repeating rows 2 and 3, 2 and 3 over and over. Now let's go through 2 and 3 once more just to refresh, okay? So for row 2, what we're going to do is chain 3, 1, 2, 3. Again, I'm just repeating this to refresh. And then in that first V of the row right here, we're going to work a double crochet, chain 1, double crochet in that first V of the row, and in every V across. So we have a V here, double crochet, chain 1, double crochet, next V, double crochet, chain 1, double crochet. And so for row 2, we are going to work a V into that turning chain space, and our little stitch marker here sort of reminds us that as well. Again, that's optional, but I find it to be very helpful just at a glance so you know what you're doing. So in that turning chain space, we're going to work a double crochet, chain 1, double crochet. Okay, so I just repeated row 2 just to show you once more. And then let's repeat row 3 one more time. Chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and turn. For row 3, we're going to work a V in that first V of the row, double crochet, chain 1, double crochet, and in each V across. So locate each V. Remember, it was that chain 1 space. So double crochet, chain 1, double crochet, each one of those chain 1 spaces. And we're going to work that in each V across. Okay, double crochet, chain 1, double crochet. And then what we're going to do, whoops, get that last loop there. Whoops, we have one more. So work your last V here. And for row 3, remember we're on the opposite side of our stitch marker. So this is just going to be a double crochet into that turning chain space, just like that, okay? So you can start to see we've just worked a few rows and we already have our little asymmetrical triangle, okay? So that is it for week 2. Now keep on working your rows if you need your wrap to be wider and longer. Later on this week, I'm going to post something that is going to show you how to wrap this. Because it is an asymmetrical wrap, it is a little bit different to wrap than a triangle or a rectangle would be. So I am going to post some things on how to wrap it and different ways to style it as well. But if you want to make it wider and longer, just keep working your rows. And when we return next week for week 3, we're going to do some finish work and kind of wrap things up and add a little tassel to kind of finish it off if you like. Don't forget to join our Ravelry group and our Facebook group so you can interact with other members of the community who are making things. And in our Facebook group, we've also been sharing the yarn that we're using. So there's a lot of beautiful colors. You can kind of see what everybody's doing as well. I will see you next week for week 3. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button to get all the latest Fiber Flux video updates. Thanks again.